Hey, it's Dorothy Black from thedotspot.net, and today we're going to be talking about all those dark little places your brain goes to when it comes to sex. We'll be talking about taboos and kinks and fetishes and when is too far too far. So maybe you fantasize about being tied up or tying someone up. Maybe you're a guy and you like wearing women's panties. Maybe you're a woman who's into gay porn. Maybe you like being choked. Maybe you fantasize about having sex with your lecturer. Maybe you fantasize about wild orgies with aliens on your parents' bed while they watch. So is it normal? Are you weird? Well, the thing with kinky thoughts is that it really is all relative. What gets us hot is really just a collection of images and objects that are deeply enmeshed with our history and our society and our culture, and even our first experience as sexual beings when we were very little. So when we think about like whether your ideas or your kinks or your desires are bad or good, we can't really say either way because it is so relative. You know, what is considered naughty and nice changes from culture to culture, from religion to religion, from time to time. In fact, in the 70s, what was considered like naughty in porn was blowjobs and pubic hair. Now it's face fucking and anal. And you might see an ankle and think nothing of it. But in some cultures, that is like the height of promiscuity. Small bits of skin might become highly eroticized in the way that you might find being tied on and peed on. So when we think about our dirty thoughts and try and weigh up whether we're normal or whether it's good or bad, we kind of really need to weigh up what feels normal for us and what we see or perceive as being normal in our society. And then you have to ask yourself, do you really care what other people think? There's a lot of shame and guilt that's attached to our fantasies and our fetishes and our taboos and our kinks. And although that kind of makes it hot, it also makes us feel other. The trick to satisfying your kinky nature is to realize that A, you're not alone, B, it's been done before, and C, technically and generally, you don't have to change yourself or your kinks or your fantasies for anyone. The idea is to find like-minded people who feel the same way and are turned on by the same things. Have you heard of Rule 34 of the internet? If it exists, there's porn of it. If you have thought about it, there is porn of it. And that is a fact. It doesn't really matter like how dirty or crazy your ideas are. People have been thinking about those exact same ideas for thousands of years. Bestiality, orgies, vomit, poo, crazy octopi sex. The Japanese did it. The Greeks did it. Everyone's done it. So it doesn't matter where your dark fantasies take you. There are people who want the same thing. You know, ideally, I'd like to say that you'd want to find a partner who you share chemistry with and who you trust and who you can share your darkest, deepest fantasies with and who will oblige. That would be great. And sometimes we find those people and sometimes we don't. But a lot of people go online to forums and communities to find other people who feel the same way as them. In fact, it's generally through exploring online and reading books and sharing with other people that we get to explore our sexual selves, to kind of have a little ping about what turns us on, what turns us off, what we want, what we don't want. And it's in those spaces that we can start getting a clear idea, a clear picture of where we want to go and the sorts of people we want to hang out with. I think the thing with kinky thoughts and with sort of more risky situations is that they don't need to be as extreme as like having sex with a 10-headed giant monster from the deep. It can really just be something that's a little bit, you know, off limits, like having sex with a family member or having sex with a teacher. And sometimes it's rather best to role play these with your partners. And so we come back to how do you invite, how do you let your partner in to your darker side or your sexual fantasies that sometimes we don't want to share because that we feel like it's not normal. We feel like we'll be embarrassed, ashamed, or rejected. How do we broach those topics with someone that we want to share them with? So my feeling is that you get that stuff onto the table as soon as possible. You know, as soon as you're clear about the fact that this is someone that you're interested in, that you want to keep having sex with, that you're willing to explore stuff with. If you have quite a serious kink, if you have quite a serious fetish, if there's something that really turns you on and you're kind of like focused on going that way, that you put that on the table as soon as possible. You know, when it comes to like meeting people and hooking up with people, we're all about like, you know, are we compatible? Do we like the same music? Do we like the same movies? Do we want to do the same things, hang out at the same parties? But for some reason, nobody thinks about like whether we're compatible sexually. What's that about? It's no less important. It's no more important, but it's certainly important. So how do you put it on the table? How do you tell your girlfriend that actually you like wearing women's underwear? Or how do you tell your boyfriend that you actually want him to put his finger up your bum when he goes down on you? Well, usually you just put it on the table, like in a very chilled conversation. It's no big deal. It's not like you're starting the Third World War. It's not like, you're a crazy serial killer. Unless you are, in which case, just hand yourself in. You could also share pictures you like, or literature you like, or videos you like, things that turn you on, and start a conversation around that. And obviously, a good way to start a conversation is to find out what your partner likes. What turns them on? What are their kinky spots? No one is going to know what the other person is thinking until someone starts the conversation, and if that person has to be you, well, then let it be you. Sex is fun. And it's way better if we get it out of the dark and play with it than ignore it and feel ashamed about it. And so some people might be weirded out by your fantasies a bit. They might be a little bit hesitant to try it, but that's okay. Everybody's a little bit like weirded out by the new until we get used to it. A bad reaction is judgment and shaming and making you feel weird or othered. If your partner does that, or you do that to your partner, you really need to take a look at like where all your own shame and your guilt is around sex. Mostly you've just got to feel your way around it, and go slow. And if the person that you're with is totally against it, if they're absolutely giving you a flat no, no is a no. You can't push or force or manipulate someone to like what you like. If you feel like you need to hide or push someone into or out of a space, you need to consider why you're in that relationship and why you're continuing to engage. If you have to hide who you are from the person that you're with, you're probably not with the right person. And ultimately, you need to decide for yourself what is best for you. Your sexual happiness is your responsibility. It is no one else's. So let's take a look at like when you do start playing. Let's say your partner's like, yeah, I really want to give that a bash. That sounds kinky. Let's give it a try. You and your partner need to be very clear about how that play is going to look. You need to be very clear about what your boundaries are, what your hard limits are. In fact, where you're both never, ever, ever going to go. You know where you're willing to go, you know what you want to try, but the other ingredient, the other absolutely essential part of exploring your kinky side with someone else is knowing that you can stop at any time, at any part of a play, at any part of a fantasy, at any part of a share, you can say no. Both of you have the power to stop a play, to stop talking about it, to stop exploring if you want to, without judgment, without shame, and without manipulation. That means that you have to be with a partner who respects you and respects your no. Just because you've started something doesn't mean you have to finish it. It means that you started feeling how it was feeling. If it started feeling uncomfortable, you stop. You stop until you are ready, and if you are never ready, then that means it's not for you. Which kind of brings me to which parts of our kinks, taboos, and fetishes are too far. Is there a too far? We can have a lot of dark and, crazy fantasies, but the minute we move that into real life, the minute we start involving other people, there has to be empowered and informed consent by everyone involved. So what that means is that the people or the person that you are engaging with sexually are all on the same power balance as you, and that they are all capable and have the capacity for conscious decision making. For example, there are some people who enjoy violent or rough sex, or sex that simulates forced sex. In that situation, it is consensual non-consent. In other words, both parties have consented and have agreed before the time that they are going to enter into a play. That play has boundaries, that play has a beginning and an end, and that play is powered, driven, and stopped by choice. It means that in that play, both partners or one partner can say no and the play stops. No matter what your play is, if it's not damaging or dangerous, if you take it out into real life, there are often consequences, like anything in the world. It doesn't mean those consequences are going to be bad. In fact, often they can be good, because sharing our intimate desires with someone we trust can really bring us closer in that relationship. But let's be honest, if you're going to take a fantasy about having sex with your boyfriend's mother or your cousin's uncle's, whatever, the point is that there will be real life consequences to that, and you need to weigh it up. Sex is like every other part of life. There are actions and then there are consequences. So when it comes to like kinks and taboos and fetishes, and they might feel bad because of our context, they might feel naughty, but it doesn't make you wrong. You're not alone. You're very normal. The idea is just to find people who can be normal like you.